Welcome back to Car Show 1, the channel where we bring you the history, the engineering, and the stories behind some of the most fascinating cars ever built. Today, we're stepping back into the early 1950s, a time when the American auto industry was booming, and competition was fierce. This was an era of chrome, curves, and post-war optimism, when cars were not just transportation but symbols of progress and prosperity. And in the middle of all that came a small car that challenged convention, a car that proved sometimes being different is what makes you stand out. This is the story of the 1951 Nash Rambler. When you think about American cars of the early 1950s, you probably imagine big sedans with long hoods, wide bodies, and huge amounts of chrome. Cars were getting larger and more luxurious as returning veterans and growing families embraced the idea of the automobile as a central part of American life. But Nash, a smaller independent automaker based in Kenosha, Wisconsin, decided to go in a different direction. Instead of following the trend of building bigger cars, Nash introduced something smaller, more efficient, and more practical. That was the Rambler, and in 1951 it proved that the little guy could make a big impact. The Nash Rambler was actually introduced in 1950, but by 1951 it had already carved out its place in the market. It was considered a compact car by American standards, though today it might look mid-sized. The idea was simple but bold: create a stylish, well-equipped car that was smaller, more affordable, and more efficient than the big sedans dominating the roads. At first, people were skeptical. Americans weren't used to buying compact cars. But as more people saw the Rambler, drove it, and realized how practical it was, its appeal grew rapidly. From the outside, the 1951 Nash Rambler was unlike anything else on the road. Nash had a reputation for aerodynamic design, and that was clear in the Rambler's smooth, rounded body. While other cars of the era had sharp edges and towering grills, the Rambler kept things simple, with clean lines, a wide stance, and minimal ornamentation. It was compact, yes, but it was also elegant. The two-door convertible model, which was one of the first offered, was especially eye-catching. It gave drivers a sense of fun and freedom, while still being affordable. Later versions included station wagons and hardtops, broadening the Rambler's appeal. Step inside the 1951 Rambler, and you'd find a cabin designed with both comfort and practicality in mind. Despite being smaller than its rivals, the Rambler didn't feel cramped. Clever packaging and design gave it surprising interior space, enough for a family to travel comfortably. The dashboard was clean and functional, with simple gauges and controls that were easy to use. Nash also included features that weren't common in compact cars at the time, like a radio and a heater, which were standard equipment rather than costly add-ons. That was a smart move, because it gave buyers a sense that they were getting value and sophistication without breaking the bank. Under the hood, the 1951 Nash Rambler came with a 173 cubic inch inline-six engine that produced around 82 horsepower. By today's standards, that doesn't sound like much, but in the early 1950s it was plenty for a small car. Because the Rambler was lighter and more compact than most American cars, it didn't need a big V8 to get around. It was peppy enough for city driving, easy to handle, and efficient on the open road. Gas mileage was an important selling point, especially as fuel economy wasn't something most American cars could boast about in this era of big engines and heavy bodies. The driving experience of the Rambler was another strong point. With its smaller size, it was easier to maneuver in crowded cities and tight parking spaces. The suspension was tuned for comfort, absorbing bumps well, and the steering was light and responsive. It wasn't a performance car, but it didn't need to be. What it offered was confidence and ease, qualities that appealed to buyers looking for something practical yet stylish. Marketing played a huge role in the Rambler's success. Nash positioned it as a smart, modern choice for families and individuals who wanted something different from the oversized sedans everyone else was driving. Ads highlighted its efficiency, its comfort, and its value, while also emphasizing its fashionable looks. One of the most clever strategies was offering the Rambler only as a well-equipped model rather than a stripped-down base version. That meant every Rambler came with features like whitewall tires, wheel covers, radios, and heaters, things that other automakers often charged extra for. This made the Rambler feel premium, even though it was smaller. The timing of the Rambler's release was also significant. Post-war America was changing rapidly. Suburbs were growing, families were expanding, and more people were looking for affordable cars that could handle both city commutes and family outings. The Rambler fit that niche perfectly. It gave buyers a car that was stylish, efficient, and affordable, without making them feel like they were sacrificing comfort or prestige. The 1951 Rambler also had cultural significance. It was one of the first successful compact cars made in America, long before the arrival of the Volkswagen Beetle in large numbers or the rise of imports in the 1960s. It showed that American automakers could build smaller cars that people actually wanted to buy, and it laid the groundwork for future compact and midsize vehicles. In many ways, the Rambler was ahead of its time, predicting the eventual shift toward efficiency and practicality that would become much more important in later decades. Collectors today look at the 1951 Nash Rambler with great admiration. It represents a moment in automotive history when bold ideas and innovation helped a smaller company compete with the giants of Detroit. Because fewer Ramblers were built compared to the big sedans of Ford, Chevrolet, and Chrysler, surviving examples are relatively rare. Restored models, especially the early convertibles, are prized for their design, their history, and the role they played in reshaping the American car market. Driving a Rambler today gives you a sense of what made it so appealing back in 1951. It's nimble, it's charming, and it carries an aura of individuality. People who see it often smile, not just because it's a beautiful classic, but because it represents a different philosophy of car building, one that valued efficiency and practicality long before those became mainstream ideas. The legacy of the 1951 Nash Rambler is about more than just the car itself. It's about what it stood for. It was proof that you didn't have to be the biggest to make an impact. Nash was a smaller company compared to the Detroit 3, but with the Rambler, it showed that innovation, smart design, and understanding what buyers really wanted could carve out a place in a competitive market. In a way, it's a story of David and Goliath, where the smaller competitor managed to surprise everyone and find success. So, when we look back at the 1951 Nash Rambler, we're not just talking about a car. We're talking about a symbol of independence, innovation, and forward thinking. It was a car that went against the grain, challenged expectations, and helped pave the way for the compact cars that would become essential in the decades that followed. It's one of those vehicles that reminds us that history isn't always written by the biggest players, but often by those willing to take risks and try something new. This has been Car Show 1, and I hope you enjoyed this journey into the story of the 1951 Nash Rambler. If you love learning about the classics that changed the way we think about cars, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. We've got many more stories to tell, from the icons of the past to the innovations of the future. Until next time, keep your passion for cars alive, and remember that every great car has a story worth telling.